In this lesson, you're going to look at your first Greek words, and this will be the beginning of an expanding Greek vocabulary. You can actually already sound out many Greek words now that you've learned the letters of the alphabet. So you can sound out the word typos, or the word tomos. Typos means type, or tomos means cutting. And once we begin to learn some Greek words, we're going to find that Greek is actually everywhere in English. If you've ever seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, you might remember that the father of the bride is Greek, of course, and is constantly explaining how absolutely every word in English derives from Greek. Well, he may be a little bit over the top, but he's not that far off. And there are some common patterns that, once we learn them, make it easier to recognize Greek words in English. So the letter upsilon often becomes a Y in English, not a U. And endings are often dropped off or shortened. So typos becomes the word type. Another common pattern is that the endings of words are often replaced when they come into English. For example, the iota-alpha combination, ia, often becomes a Y, E, in English. But it doesn't have to be iota-alpha, especially when two words are compounded to create an English word having to do with a subject area or an abstract idea. We see the ending of the last word dropped off and replaced by Y. So theos, meaning God, plus logos, meaning speech or discourse, becomes theology, discourse about God. And the os at the end of logos is dropped off and replaced by Y. Monos plus gamos gives us monogamy. Monos meaning one or only, and gamos meaning marriage. Topos, meaning place, plus graphe, meaning writing, gives us topography, having to do with the map making or the contour of land when we're making maps. In fact, most medical terms are Greek. I said before that the word tomos means cutting, and so we have a word like lobotomy, where lobos means a lobe or a pod, and tomos means cutting. And so a lobotomy is a cutting of the lobes of the brain. Also, if you know that iatros means doctor or healer, you can recognize where the names come from of many of the medical specialties. So podos means a foot, or concerning a foot. And so a podiatrist is a foot doctor or foot healer. And since the psyche is the mind or the soul, a psychiatrist or psychiatrist is a healer or a doctor for the mind or the soul. We also see Greek prefixes on common English words, especially adjectives like megas, which means big or large. And so we have words like mega store or mega star or even mega church. And its opposite adjective, mikros, means small or tiny. And we see that in words like microscope or microprocessor or microwave. Here are a few words you'll use right away. If you have to answer yes or no, then you'll need to know the words nigh and oo. Nigh means yes, and oo means no. Another way of affirming something is to say iuga, which means all right or okay. It's a more colloquial way of speaking. One thing to notice about the word oo, no, is that If it's followed by a word that starts with a vowel, you get a kappa added onto the end, just to make it easier to pronounce. So in that case, oo can also show up as ook. And I find it easy to remember that oo means no, because it sounds a little bit like you're disgusted by something, you know? Ooh. So if you don't like something, ooh, you might say ooh. When you get feedback from the townspeople in Paideia, you'll probably hear two words, kalon and kakon. Kalon means good, well done, and kakon means bad, poorly done. But if somebody says oo kakon, that's saying not bad. Maybe not great, not quite kalon, but oo kakon. Now, another kind of word that we're going to use right away is conjunctions. Conjunctions are connecting words. They can connect sentences. Sometimes they can connect clauses in a single sentence. Like if I say, I'm going to go to the store, but I'll be home soon. The conjunction but there connects the two clauses about going to the store and about being home, and allows us to see the relationship logically between them, and also makes them part of one sentence. But conjunctions can also connect phrases. So I could say, I'm going to the store and to the park. The conjunction and there in English connects the two phrases to the store and to the park. Now, there are 5 very basic conjunctions in Greek. 3 of them mean more or less the same thing, and these are kai, te, and de. Kai is usually translated and, te is usually translated and de is often translated and or but. Now, what's important to understand about kai, te, and de is that they're all very, very weak connectors. That means they don't even really have as strong a meaning as the English words and or but. They really just are a way of signaling, hey, these two clauses are connected to one another somehow. That means that when we translate them into English, particularly with kai and te, we often have to come up with different English conjunctions to translate this one Greek conjunction. So, for example, we usually don't introduce a new sentence with the word and in English. I know in conversation we do, but in formal English we don't. And yet Greek often opens a new sentence with kai. Well, that's just a way of saying there's some kind of logical connection between this sentence and the one that came before. What exactly is that logical connection? Kai doesn't really say. So we have to then look at the context and infer what the logical connection is between the sentences and use an English conjunction that is appropriate. And this is why at the beginning of sentences, kai will often be translated so, or then, or next, or with some English connector like that, signaling what we think in context is the particular relationship between the sentence and the sentence that came before. Te is really used almost identically, although we don't see it nearly as often as we see kai. And de is very often going to have an adversative sense. In other words, it's signaling that there's some opposition between this sentence and the one that came before, or this clause and the one that came before. We just have to keep in mind that it doesn't always have an adversative connotation. It's also a very weak connector. And so sometimes it'll be more appropriate to translate de with and, or at the beginning of a sentence to translate it with one of those other English conjunctions like so, then, or next. The other thing to keep in mind with de is that it's post-positive. That means that it can't be the first word in a sentence. It always comes second. So even though in our English translation we'll translate de as the beginning of our English sentence, in Greek, it's never going to be the very first word. It's always going to come after the first word. Why? There's no logical reason for it. It's just the way Greek style developed. The fourth conjunction here, though, Allah, is quite different. This is a strong adversative conjunction, and it really means but, or but rather. It's saying, we've just stated one idea, but this second idea is true, even though it seems to oppose or conflict with the idea that we just stated. So kai, te, and de, very weak connectors. Allah, on the other hand, a very strong adversative connector. Finally, we have a. This means or. It tells us that two phrases or two clauses are alternatives. I might say that a piece of fruit is kakos e kalos, good or bad. This conjunction is pretty easy to grasp for English speakers. The one hazard is that we'll soon learn another word that looks very similar, hey. The only difference between them is the breathing mark. This conjunction has a smooth breathing mark, and there's no H sound at the beginning. It sounds like a, and it means or. But if you use a rough breathing mark, then you have an H sound at the beginning, and the word hey is one way of saying the. That word will actually be a lot more common than this conjunction. So just don't forget that with a smooth breathing mark, a means or. The other thing that can seem a bit strange is that if we want to say either or, we repeat the conjunction a twice, once in front of each of the alternatives. So it's like a does double duty for the English words either and or. If I want to say that my piece of fruit is either bad or good, then I would say that it is a kakos, a kalos, either good or bad. Thanks for watching. I'm Ian Scott, and I'm Associate Professor of New Testament Studies at Tyndale Seminary. We're a trans-denominational graduate school of theology in Toronto, Canada. This video was produced as part of my web app called Paideia, an interactive space for learning the Hellenistic Greek of the New Testament and other early Jewish and Christian writings, as well as the whole Hellenistic world. If you haven't tried out Paideia, you can find the app at learngreek.ca/Paideia. You can find the whole playlist of my Greek videos by clicking the link here. And if you appreciate free learning resources like this, don't forget to click the like button below and subscribe to my channel.